Hello everyone. Today I'm going to continue with the last lecture. Whatever left, I'll go from there. I run down the list of what happened to Instancology. I told you how I discovered it last time and how I come to realize the categories, the relationships, the two worlds. Those are the basic or fundamental ontological entities. Let me write it down first. All right. For this one, the topic is how to prove the absolutely absolute, I call it the double A, is the fundamental or ultimate truth. In other words, to show how the ontology in philosophy has advanced to a new stage. It goes actually beyond philosophy. You understand why it's no longer, strictly speaking, philosophy anymore. I call it absolutology, the study of the absolute. Because philosophy is to study something, and absolutology is to study beyond philosophy. All right, let me do it as we used to. Write the topic down first. Okay, how to prove the absolutely absolute is the absolute truth. A big claim, huh? Very audacious. How can you say you can do that? Is that a small claim or is that something you cannot control yourself? I'll let you be the judge. If I said I'm wrong, 99%, right? If I'm saying I'm the richest guy in the world, no, nonsense. I don't believe you. You may say that. Well, if Bill Gates say that, you probably believe him. Because others told you Bill Gates is the richest guy in the world. It's the same principle here. Everybody, every philosopher in the past claims he or she, well, mostly he, got the absolute truth ever since Parmenides, Plato, Augustine, Descartes, Kant, Hegel, Heidegger, or even Wittgenstein. Every philosopher says that. But do you believe there is one philosopher, he is right, and 99% of others are wrong? All right? Now I'm saying instancology is the absolute truth, is the philosopher's stone in this long chain of history of philosophical pursuit of the truth since ancient Greek philosophers started. Do you believe so? Well, hold a minute. Think about that. Don't just believe what I said. Think for yourself. All right? Study what this guy said and see if it makes sense for you. All right? That's the best you can make of it. And you can reach your own conclusion, hopefully. Okay, in this talk, I'm going to say more words about the double A, the absolutely absolute. I believe that's pretty hard to understand. To my knowledge, since the last 10, 7, 8 years, I don't see anybody understood this concept. So I'm going to try a little bit harder. Actually, it bothered me for quite a while how to express, how to convey, how to reveal, expose the truth of the ultimate reality, the philosopher's stone. How to do that? How to convince people that is true? Well, let me try one more time. I hope I can this time. If you cannot, well, maybe that's all I can do. I can write it like Hegel did. He wrote his system. If you don't understand, he doesn't care. He says, I did it. It's your problem to interpret it, to understand it, to make it intelligible to you. You believe you have a higher IQ? Try it. I remember when I was a graduate student in Ohio, Miami University, in the philosophy department, there's a bust, bronze bust of Hegel. And underneath, there's a line, to measure your mind. Against whom? This guy, called Hegel. All right? So you try to understand him, and he won't let you do it. Well, maybe not, maybe yes. But until his death, he's still claiming in his deathbed there's only one person who can understand my philosophy. But even him getting it wrong. You see? There's another way for him to say nobody ever understood my philosophy. But he's confident he's correct. You won't forget his theory. He died 300 years ago, and he is still alive today. A lot of philosophers are all around the world studying him, right? Probably his name will go down history like Plato or Aristotle, right? Okay. Thinking about this, I remember that I didn't mention much about the father of philosophy. Who is that? Socrates. Socrates, what is particularly important about Socrates is he likes to ask questions. To question or not to question is a sign of smartness. 99% correct. Remember this. Any stubborn bigotry or biased people will stop you from asking questions. All right, remember when you were small, you asked too many questions, You Chinese parents will say, stop that nonsense. Don't ask questions, right? Even nowadays, probably in China is still the case. Do they allow you to ask questions? No. They just won't let you say anything. They stop you. They silenced the questioners instead of answer the questions. Like the people in the ancient Socrates' time, they just poisoned the philosopher. That's always true. 2,500 years ago, true, and today is true too. Right? Do you think Donald Trump likes you to ask questions? No, they won't. I think it's a pretty common everywhere else. They won't allow you to ask questions. They want to guard their authority and want you to listen. Correct or incorrect, wrong or right, it doesn't matter. What matters is you obey the orders. You obey the authorities, all right? But the philosophers are another bunch of guys who just don't believe this, who challenge the authorities, challenge the popular opinions, challenge many questions other people take as common sense. They have to evaluate. They want to evaluate before they accept it. According to Socrates, not examined life is not worth living. So you can pretty much take this as granted. How smart a person is, see how good he can ask questions, or she. I don't want to be a racist, of course. So it means asking questions is a sign of smartness, by the way. All right. Let me try to come back. Don't digress too much. All right. For this one, how do I let you know? How do I convince you? There's something called the absolutely absolute. It's not by using some device, not by using some mathematics or even whatever tools you can think of. You have to do the mental exercise like Albert Einstein did. All right, he's a physicist, but it's the same thing. Philosophers do this all the time. Okay, so let's take the Descartes' methodology of analysis. All right, if you know a little bit about Descartes, you know how he discovered think, therefore I am. How he discovered that? He just get everything in his basket and threw out one by one from his table. Then eventually come to I, or myself. If I'm thinking, I must exist. That's a fundamental truth. All right, we'll go basically down this route, but we'll go much deeper, will extend much beyond what Descartes did. All right, hopefully we can discover, I can convince you of the truth of the absolute, absolutely absolute, the double A. All right, let me try to write down the major categories, and then we'll go from there. All right. All right, first let me give you the 4 categories besides the double A. All right, the 4 categories, actually it's 5. Let's exclude this double A, and then we got 5. Determined being. Being is self, thinking, and the potentials. In Chinese, when I wrote the book, I put it into Chinese. This is rough translation. Okay? I call this one 定在. If you know Chinese, that's good. This actually, basically the idea is from Hegel. Determined being. Alright? That meaning, if there's something, that thing has a limit, has its boundaries, has its features which distinguish itself from others. All right, make itself not same as others, not identical to another. That's called determined being. All right, because of that, it must have some other limitations or shortcomings. All right, that's a basic idea. Just give you a brief introduction. Being is existence. This being you can regard as Parmenides' being from language, or you can regard it as Heidegger's being from reality, from the human, what humans see, from Dasein, being then and there, from the perspective of human. Okay, so that's being or existence, roughly. All right, thinking is something new here. I call it 思在. Okay, whatever mentally created, your thought, the pure form from Plato, you can all put into this category. All right, and in phenomenology, people talk about the mental images, dreams, all right, everything you can put there. Even some logic, some mathematical formulas, those kind of things. People call it the truth. I call it the relative truth. You can put into 思在 or thinking. This is thinking as a group, okay, as a category. The last one is what I added. I call it a 在. That is a potential. Before being, you have a potential. You don't have potential, you don't have being. You don't see being until it's formed. Think about the reality. If a person wanted to commit a crime, all right, he must have the motivation first, the desire, the wish to do harm, correct? He will plan first. He'll think about that. He probably will do exercise. He needs to do preparation to commit the evil thing. That's called potential. Similarly, in philosophy, when we come to the being, we started to recognize something there. That's the existence. Okay? Before its being, there's a potential. Okay? Think about that. There's a new category, I put it there. So same as see, thinking, or 思在. So 在, 思在, these are new things, all right? 2 new things. Of course, the biggest new thing is the double A. Double A is absolutely absolute. How do I reach this? And I'll lead you down the hole. See if you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Figure out what I mean there. Hopefully it makes sense to you eventually. All right, okay, let's go. Remember this thing. All right, another thing I want to say is here. All right, remember the two worlds, the macro world, the micro world. All right, the two worlds is the obvious division. I mentioned the last time for my macro world, it's a two-dimensional. It's a space and a time, or using Einstein's term, it's a spatial-temporal world. They are connected, time and space. All right, and the macro world is something not existing in the macro world. All right, like a logic, like a mathematics, like a dreams, like a lot of elements in the quantum mechanics. In quantum mechanics, in the basic of the physics studies. That's the macro world. We know they exist, but we cannot touch it. We cannot see it. We only can know it through mathematics, through logic. It must be true. Right? We do have a lot of things in that category. You may say people's imagination, ghost, or any imagined spiritual products go into this category too of the macro world. All right, so two worlds. All right, this second big part, and the third one, of course, is the four categories we mentioned last time. That is double R, RA, AR, and double A. All right, remember that? Relatively, relative, that is whatever involves human. All right, humans' efforts, humans' creation, anything related to human. Relatively relative. Relatively absolute. Relatively absolute. This category is a natural part in micro world. Whatever in nature, human cannot touch, cannot change, cannot do anything about it. All right, like the galaxies, stars, Big Bang, black hole, antimatter, basic elements, a lot of other things like that. Okay, it belongs to this category, relatively absolute. Here, AR, absolutely relative. Absolutely relative. Okay, I think I got it wrong here. Just what I said about the relatively absolute should go to here. Absolutely relative. That means absolute means you cannot change. Relative means it's limited. Limited. So, for this one, relatively absolute is logic here. Alright? For here is anything absolute relative. Means, okay, here. I think I got it correct. I'm sorry. Let me do it one more time. Relatively absolute is anything like logic, math, dreams, ghost, if you will, that category, all right? Absolutely relative, meaning something you cannot touch, you cannot change, which goes into the macro world, like a galaxy, black hole, Big Bang, some basic elements, things like that. You can do nothing about it. All right. So the last one, absolute, and we'll talk about this later. Okay. So 3 big groups, and when in our analysis later, we'll reference each of them. We'll see how far we can go chasing the absolutely absolute in these 3 categories, and using the knowledge, what we learn from here, to chase the meaning, the reality of the absolutely absolute. That's a purpose. Okay? Okay, let's do it. Okay, for Descartes, he started to think about, I think, let's say, a table in front of him. On the table, there's a bowl. In that, there are some fruits. Take out apple, take out banana, take out orange one by one. Eventually, take off the whole table. Then think about what else left? Only me there, right? And think about the mind. And thinking eventually come to the head. Thinking. If I'm thinking, I must exist. Therefore, I am. Okay? That's his way of analysis. Let's go this way too. But we'll go deeper. We'll extend this analysis to a wider, more extensive future down the road. Okay, let's try that. Let's say in front of you we have a window. We open it. What do you see there? You can see people on the street. You can see cars are running. You can see children are playing, right? You can see sunshine. Hopefully it's a nice day. You can see blue skies, birds chirping or singing, and people are talking. All right, we need to first to frozen to make all you see into images, make them still. All right, so first thing we need to move out is the time dimension. Think about that. Any movement we cut into a piece, like a film. All right, you know film, there's a 24 small pieces. If it is running through your eyes, you see them moving as natural. All right, it's the same thing. Same principle for your eye, we just frozen into one frame instead of 24 frames into one. So in this image, one frame, we removed the dimension of time. All right, then take out one by one, people, birds, cars, flowers, children, sky, air, sunshine, of course. Everything you can see with your eyes. Then we come to Descartes' part, to your body, your mind. Okay. First, in this taking out, whatever you see, you are out of the macro world, right? First, you take out, you run out of the macro world, the dimension, two-dimensional world, space and time. Okay? That's for sure. When you come to yourself, think about what you are thinking, then you come to the macro world. Here, you don't have a time dimension, correct? But you still have an image. For example, you have mathematics, right? You need to symbol to write mathematics. You have logic, you have A, B, things like that, negative and equal to, that kind of a thing. Symbols, right? The logic symbols. You have that. You have image left. So you need to take out the space. Take out the space. That is to take out space and time. You have whatever you left is now from the macro world. You have no being anymore, right? You have what you left? You have potential. Potential. Whatever not formed yet. Okay? But this concept is not forming yet. It's potential. It doesn't necessarily mean or related to the time, to this dimension. It can be logically before or after. It can be cause and effect. It can go that way. So logically, which comes first, which is a consequence. It doesn't necessarily mean time. Okay? So be careful with this. Okay, so we eventually, after several attempts to remove everything from the macro world, we come to micro world, then we come to the potential. So from determined being to thinking to potential. All right, is the potential after the last thing we have in this micro world is potential, it's psi. Then what are we left with? You may ask, think about that. What do you have after potential? After you leave the micro world, what do you have? Well, at this point, we are left only with the background, the base, the source of everything else. Correct? If we don't have this background, we don't have this source, we don't have this origin, we don't have the two worlds, the macro world and the micro world. And this one, macro world, comes first, I should say that. But anyway, with this, we are here not explaining to the philosophers, mostly to amateurs or laypersons, not in the philosophy field. But if you are philosophers, if you are in the trade of philosophy, studying philosophy, you may read my books and read more or pose questions, try to understand it. But we don't go that extensive for that reasoning or knowledge here. I dare say, after we dig deeper or through the potential side, we come to the background, we come to the origin, we come to the source of these two worlds, right? That's called absolutely absolute. This is a double A. You may think, so what? What's special about this absolutely absolute? Okay, maybe you're right. Let's see what we left with. All right, I call it, I put it here, 4. All right, the foundation, the origin, the background, the source. All right, whatever you call it, foundation, origin, background, source of the absolutely absolute. Can we just say that way? Can we just use the word foundation to refer to absolute, absolutely absolute, instead of saying double A? It's so tongue twister like, right? Maybe we can simplify our task. We just say origin, we just say background, we just say source. That's it. So what's special about this source? Okay, let's see. If you call it, let me pick anyone. Let's say background, all right? We know what background is. You have a background, correct? Everybody has a background, which is where you grow up, which culture you grow up with, what your parents are, the relationship in the society, that's called your background, right? How you are raised up, and what you eat, what you play with, your friends, everybody is a background. Okay. Here's the thing. When we say background, remember in the past, we already been through from the macro world and from the micro world. We already got rid of the relationships of the three: relatively relative, relatively absolute, absolutely relative. Then we come to the final one, that is absolutely absolute. So, do we have a bag? Can you call it a bag? When you say the word bag, do you mean it's beyond something? It's at the other side. Is that called a bag? Correct. Right? Either in time or in space, or figuratively speaking, imagine some background, bag. That is like a shadow, right? Okay, here's the problem. When you invoke those images, you fall into the trap you used to. That is in the world of either micro or macro. We said earlier, you have to jump out of them, one by one, throw them out of your basket, like Descartes did. So you cannot have those images of the bag anymore. Whatever the word bag invokes those images, you have to forget it. You cannot use the word bag anymore, can you? It's the same thing for ground, right? This background is formed by two words in English, bag and ground, background. The ground is something like a piece of earth or platform or whatever. There's a shape or form. It's something tangible, correct? You have to evoke that image in your mind. But as we said before, you cannot do that because we already got rid of the macro world, anything from the macro world. The two worlds, we got rid of them already. How can you use those images? You cannot. As a matter of fact, by language analysis, we know whatever the words we use here are words, are languages. Words are languages, part of the language. Language is in the micro world, right? We use it daily in our world. Language itself has limitations. Sometimes it cannot express or it cannot use to describe what it may mean. So from this fundamental concept, or reality of absolute, language is inadequate to use to express it. But only by language we can convey, we can pass the idea to others, to let other people understand it. Correct? You have to show them what this theory is all about. Maybe I can play a piece of music to show you, or I can dance it, or I can draw a picture. But do you think that's more effective than language? Although language has its own limitations, of course. So, the conclusion is language is limited too. We cannot refer absolutely absolute as any words we use, including the words itself. Absolutely absolute. That's the words. That's the language. It has limitations. It cannot express this meaning. Get it? So think about this way. You absolutely have no other way to know it through language, through understanding even. Because when you try to understand it, you have to have thoughts. When you have thoughts, you have to have language. You have to evoke some intuition or sixth sense, right? That's in Chinese, we have the story, angler or fisherman, when he catches fish, he forgot the rod, the angling rod. 得鱼忘全. It's the same thing. If you climb a ladder to the roof, top of the roof, then after you got to the roof, you can forget the ladder. The ladder, the fishing rods are the language. It's a tool. The tools can only be used to serve its purpose, nothing else. It's the same way we have it here to express the meaning of the absolutely absolute. We have no other way to convey it to you, to expound, to explain, to make it intelligible to you. No other way except using language. All right? So think about that. Something we have to use to express the absolutely absolute. It's there. It's not something, it's not nothing, because nothing is come from something, right? According to a lot of philosophers like Parmenides or Hegel. Nothing is secondary to something. If you don't have the original idea, concept of something, you cannot have the idea of nothing. Nothing is missing of something. Some people don't understand it, even including the philosopher Leibniz, the German philosopher Leibniz. He asks the question, why there is something rather than nothing? By this question is famous. But by asking this question, it shows he don't know the actual relationship between something and the nothing. This absolutely absolute is not something, is not nothing. It's beyond something and nothing. It's sort of like a background without or having the limitation of language. When you say that, you have to remember. And I don't know if I can say more or clearer than this. Hopefully it will give you some ideas and strike some chord on your mind, as I did 20, 30 years ago. All right? Okay, and then next time we'll go on to say what's the effect or meaning or significance of this discovery of the double absolute. Okay? Thanks for listening. See you next time.